Today, Start Mindsets, we have a very cool guest all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Shout out to the ATL. And she's actually from upstate New York, from what I recall. But yeah, Julia Arpag is the founder and one of the co-founders of Aligned Recruitment. And they run a recruiting company that helps companies scale and helps people, find their dream job, I'm guessing. So, Julia, I just want to say hi, and it's great to have you here on the pod.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. What brought you to Georgia from New York, and like just how your career just transformed into where it is?
Like you said, I'm from upstate New York. I'm from Rochester. I've been here in Atlanta for about 7 years. And back when I lived in New York, I worked in undergrad recruitment. So I
Hmm.
recruited high school students to attend the college that I worked for. And I loved it. I did that job for 2.5 years. It was the perfect fit for someone who's super extroverted, which I am. And I realized I don't think I can talk to 17-year-olds for the rest of my life, but I really like recruitment. So when we relocated to Atlanta for my husband's job, he worked in the media industry at the time. He was a videographer for a faith-based nonprofit here in Georgia. I realized it was an opportunity for a fresh start. So I spent a little bit of time working in marketing, realized I hated it, and then got back to my recruitment roots and got my first job as a corporate recruiter working at a nonprofit here in Atlanta. Loved it, and then wanted to go agency side so that I could work with multiple clients. And I've been doing that ever since. I absolutely love it.
Wow, yeah, I looked it up too. You have an English degree like me, right? Like, is that
Yes, the
right?
best degree in the world.
Oh,
Yes, I have a business
heck,
degree.
heck yeah, yeah. Where'd you go for undergrad? Actually, just
I went to
wanted.
Hamilton College, a tiny little liberal arts school up in New York.
I always gotta like have a special place in the heart for the English majors because they get like the short end of the stick a lot when it comes to hiring, right? You think, or what do you think? Like they always say you can't get.
I got a ton of crap, obviously, when I went to college for an English degree. Everyone was like, "Oh, so you can read?" Now, in defense of English majors, I read this amazing article a couple years back that has never left me. And the author talked about how English majors, if anything, we are audacious.
Where
You know what? Yes, we could major in engineering, or we could major in, I don't know, something more concrete, economics, whatever the case may be. But we want to major in English. We just want to, and we're going to make it work. Whatever career we end up in, we're going to be the best writers, the best speakers, the best communicators. So I always think about that. And I have met so many English majors who are in professions like this. They're entrepreneurs, they're building things from the ground up, they're founders, they're leaders. And I think it all starts with the audacity that we all had to go to college for an English degree. So
Julia, this is a question for you. You see a lot of resumes, I'm guessing, right? Or do you think that like the degree you get in college kind of is not as important to your career anymore? I know that that could be a case by case kind of like, you want to be a doctor, you got to get like medical classes in your under your belt and all that, but like I guess like with the tech space and just like how everything's like kind of distributed and there's not necessarily like you need to have this degree to be a recruiter, right? Or like be a salesperson. Do you see like people should have certain degrees for I guess like entry level tech jobs or like what is your opinion on that?
that's such a good question, Dan. And yeah, you're right. It really is case by case. For example, I know there are a lot of companies that do really want to see an undergrad degree in software engineering or at least some work experience. For the truly entry level jobs, what will help you get your foot in the door is if you have at least a degree in that realm. Now, for something like sales, you mentioned, that's more of like a people skills job. So it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter what degree you have. Typically, some companies do want to see that you have a business or an econ major. But a lot of companies are open to, you don't even have to have a bachelor's. Tailor your approach based on whatever the requirements are of that specific field.
For sure. When you were getting your degree or you just graduated, did you want to be I guess like an entrepreneur or recruiter in the
Oh my
same
gosh,
sense?
Dan, I had literally no idea what I wanted to do. So my parents were both career
Okay.
committed to what they did. My dad was a teacher for 35 years. My mom's been a nurse practitioner for 35 years. I was like, oh my God, I guess you have to pick a career and never leave it. Like this is so intense and scary, and I have no idea what to pick. So no, I totally did the bounce around thing right after college. I worked for 6 months at SoulCycle in New York
Mm.
City. I was an operations manager there. Then I just temped and did admin office jobs. Then I spent a summer doing missions work in a couple different states across the US. Then I did some service work with AmeriCorps back in New York. And then from there is where I got into undergrad recruitment. And that, that full year of kind of wandering from role to role, getting a better sense of who I am, what I'm good
Yeah.
at, what I enjoy, that was so formative. So No, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to kind of bounce around and figure out what I wanted. And then now that I've landed here, I see all the threads that got me here. But no, at the time I had no idea what I wanted to do.
What do you call that? Just interesting. Like it's really cool to see like that jump, you know? Like there's
Mhm.
a lot of people who see careers as linear, but it's never really like that if you ask me.
Really
You
not.
know?
Yeah, I know so few people who've had a truly linear career. So
Uh-huh.
I think just letting yourself release that pressure on yourself will just open up so many doors for you in your career.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I totally agree. I guess like do you think like the job market's changed a lot with the rise of work from home? Do you think like people are just wanting different jobs than always thought? Like the perspective on that has changed, right? Like the type of job you
Yeah.
want because I guess they like flexibility more and maybe that's a Gen Z millennial thing, but what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, I think to your point, people have realized they have more options. Like, if you want to work in an office, great. But if you don't have to. So, like we, for example, as a recruitment firm, we recruit for companies that are fully remote and we recruit for companies that have offices. And when we talk to candidates, we're just fully transparent about that. And then they can opt in or opt out based on what their goals are. But yeah, I think it's an amazing thing. The candidates are realizing they have options, they have choices. There definitely has been a huge uptick in entrepreneurship. I actually heard that the IRS is hiring 40,000 more auditors this
I guess
year
so.
because of how many entrepreneurs there are. They need to audit all of us. Just an FYI for all my other founders out there. Make sure all your ducks are in a row. But I think that's such a cool thing, right? Like so many of us realized, hey, I don't have to work a 9 to 5. I don't have to be a W-2 employee. I can go out and start my own thing. So I think it's so cool that more and more people are realizing they can build their own career into whatever they want it to be.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, just Silicon Valley, like I guess like I was around a lot of people who start the companies, or I would remember graduating from school and like seeing like the Airbnb building or the Uber building, and like,
Mhm.
how the hell does that happen? Like when I come back from university for summer, and like there's this new industry, or like yeah, this new industry,
Mhm.
hospitality and technology, and like just what those two are doing, and kind of just like wow, yeah, that's changing the. With you, Julia, you know, you alluded to like how you started the recruitment firm. Was there like a big moment in your life you're like, oh, like this is a grand idea, or like did you just want to? How did tell me how that happened?
Yeah, yeah. So the moment I decided to start Aligned, I had an awakening where I got laid off 5 weeks after my youngest was born. So he's 7 months old now. The company I worked for did mass layoffs, let literally every single person go except for one recruiter. And they were like, good luck. It was just very rough. So what was amazing, and this was in the midst of, recruiters are being laid off left and right. The tech industry in general is really struggling. I had seen people just posting like, I've been out of work for a year or 18 months, or like I've sent 1,000 applications and nothing's coming to fruition. So I didn't panic. I'm a person of faith. So I believed, this is going to work out. I don't know how, but I know it's going to work out. And I literally got 6 job offers within 2 weeks.
Mm.
So I thought to myself, okay, how can I say yes to all of these? And one of the offers I got was from my co-founder, Alanna, who had started Aligned a couple months before, but hadn't really started going to market yet, didn't really have a baked out message or mission or vision for the company. So she approached me and asked if I'd consider being a co-founder and a co-owner, and we would own the business 50-50. And I had thought about going out on my own before, but the idea of getting to do it with someone like Alanna, who's a friend of mine, I've worked with her before, I know her work ethic. She's an entrepreneur. She had started and scaled her own business before. I knew that was an amazing opportunity for me to delve into this world of starting my own firm with someone who I knew and trusted. So
Wow.
that's what made me decide to open it up. And amazingly, 2 of the offers that I got have become clients of Aligned Recruitment. And the other offers I got are other people in the recruitment industry who I've gotten to stay in touch with and kind of grow with and collaborate with as we've built the business. So I'm really,
That,
really grateful.
that's so cool. Do you guys just work with people in Atlanta, or you know, is it dispersed, or what markets do you guys
Good
operate in?
question. Yeah, yeah, good question. So we work with tech companies anywhere in the US, are based here in Atlanta. Some of them are fully remote. A lot of them don't even have offices. So we can recruit talent from anywhere across the US. And actually, some of our companies recruit internationally too.
Hmm.
So one of our clients, we've filled roles for them in South America, Latin America, I'm talking to a company right now that's looking to recruit specifically in Colombia and Puerto
Oh,
Rico.
cool.
Yeah, so we're very diverse in terms of where we can source our talent from, and in terms of the companies that we work with, we partner with small tech companies to fill any roles on their internal teams.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Like they always make big emphasis on hires. Like what would you say is do they all kind of look for the same thing, or like what do you think is like the thing that they should be looking for, right? Other than just meeting job requirements. Is there more to that, or like what do you think?
That's a good question. Yeah. So what our clients always look for is the soft skills that anyone can have. Like this is
Oh,
my biggest feedback to anyone ever who's like, oh, I just can't find a job. Every single employer is going to want you to have grit, hustle, perseverance, a good attitude, not be a complainer, right? Like these are the things that are every single role I've ever recruited for ever. They want someone who they're going to be able to jump on a call with you and you're not going to be silent or
oh,
awkward,
gotcha.
able to have a conversation. You need to be able to engage. You don't have to be an extrovert. You do need to be able to hold a professional conversation. The rest of the search is pretty focused on, do you have these specific hard skills and experience doing the things that this client's looking for? And we typically recruit for more senior level roles within our tech companies. So normally there's a specific tech stack you need to have as a software developer. For example, JavaScript, Python, Node, specific experience in one of those. If I'm recruiting for a sales role, typically you have to have done, a really highly consultative type of sale where the sales cycle took, 3 to 6 months. You
Mm,
were selling a 6 to 7 figure product. So there are some hard skills like that. But I mean, yeah, anyone who's looking for a job, just hone those
okay.
soft skills and it's only help you. I guarantee it.
Do you find like I don't want to stereotype engineers versus like salespeople, and I guess like an early stage company, those are like the two biggest things in demand, right? Like, would you say that salespeople that they have to be super energetic,
You
like
actually probably shouldn't be hyper high energy. Yeah, I would say the biggest skill set that my clients look for when they're hiring for sales is someone who can drive a high level conversation.
mm,
So there is a certain level of energy needed. You do need to be socially engaging, right? Like you do need to make the prospective client you're talking to make you feel like you're listening well, you care for them, you're able to understand what they're saying, and you're able to repeat it back to them. So there's those soft skills of holding that type of conversation. But no, I wouldn't say there's like a mold of a salesperson that every single person has to have the exact same personality. You just need to lean into whatever your natural giftings are, emphasize them so that you're a really good
yeah.
negotiator and a really good closer. That's really what every single sales director is looking for when they hire for their team.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a friend who I went to school with. He works at Uber Eats, I think, and like he's so laid back. Like he smokes weed and stuff, but like he's just so laid back. And I'm like, dude, I don't see you meeting that hyper like super energetic kind of like personality. And like I guess like yeah, as you said, you just have to listen and be good at I guess you could say it's selling, but like just the overall like aspect of conversation and just bringing value to people, I guess, right? It seems like that.
Yeah. Well, I would say the biggest thing actually, so I'm reading Never Split the Difference right now, which
Oh
anyone
yeah.
listening to this who wants to do anything related to sales at all, this is the number one book I'd recommend, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He talks about how the biggest skill set you need is actually making your all-encompassing goal listening to the other person and fully understanding what they're saying. That is actually key. So maybe that's why you're friends, because he's just absorbing what the other person is saying to him and he's really understanding it. And maybe that's why he's so good at his job.
Yeah, I've listened to that book too. It's by the FX-FBI director or something like that, right? Or something, spy
Yeah,
or
he was
something
an
like that.
FBI. Yeah, exactly. He worked in hostage negotiations, so that's how he got into this field.
Man, very interesting.
Yeah.
I guess well, the next question I had was yeah, so what would you say is like the difference between like a firm or like a company working with you guys versus like hiring their own recruiter inside their company? Is there a
Yeah.
difference you'd think or
No, that's such a good question. I love that, Dan. So yes, there's definitely a difference, right? Like if you hire an internal recruiter, you're paying their salary, you're paying their benefits, you're committing to them long term. I mean, you're committing to this person that you've brought on your team. Versus if you work with us. So we work on a 30-day period. So we partner from month to month. If ever you're like, you know what, you filled all our roles, we're good to go. We're going to pause our partnership for now. We're like, great. It's not like we're your internal recruiter that you then have to lay us off.
no,
You
got it.
right, you can just pause the partnership and then start it back up again when you need to. There's also the the flexibility that you have with hiring a recruitment partner, where we have different recruiters who can work on different roles. So if we have someone who's really strong in tech recruitment or someone who's really strong in sales recruitment, you'll get that expertise versus just being able to hire one recruiter internally.
Mm.
But we do embed in our clients. So we get to know them on a very, very close basis. And then we actually go to market to recruit branded as that client. So we say, hey, this is Julia from, let's say, Uber Eats. We kind of explain the role to the candidate like an internal member of that team. So the candidate really understands that we're embedded there.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Like when you started the company, did you see that working out that way, or like did you see was there like different business
Yeah,
plans that you guys
yeah,
had?
no, it's amazing. Our clients have been fully on board with the way that we do business. Cause yeah, you're right. Some recruitment agencies just throw resumes at their clients and like hope for the best. And that's not the way we work. So we explain that from the very beginning with our clients. We say, hey, listen, we'd like an internal email address. We'd like access to your Slack instance. We're going to brand as you on LinkedIn and to our candidates. If they don't want that, we can be flexible, but typically they like that kind of integrated messaging the candidate gets.
Hmm.
And then we also, the way that we launch the partnership is not only do we do a thorough call where we understand all the requirements of the role, we then do a calibration 2 days later where we bring profiles of candidates who we think fit the role based on what they said. And then they say yes or no so that we can make sure we're totally aligned on the search before we launch it. So our clients actually love that because that just gives us like a second degree of making sure that we fully understood the role they're looking for before we go to market to find their candidates. This is how to recruit. I'm telling you exactly how to run a successful search. So
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, Julie, I wanted to hear like I do know a couple of people who work for recruiting company or firms, and I did. I think I met somebody who started one as well. But when you started this, did you see like what did you find hard? Like it seems like there's a lot of people like I think I hear on LinkedIn, or at least I guess like people have told me like, oh, it's so hard to get a job, or and then the managers are like, oh, it's so hard to like hire the right person, and like
mhm.
they make such a big deal out of not hiring who they're interviewing, because they'll interview like 50. I mean, it depends, right? But like they'll interview, or at least they'll get like 100 applications, and then they'll choose to interview 30, and then it's so hard to pick somebody because there's like maybe a lot of competitiveness, or I guess it's just so hard to pick somebody when they're all pretty good and like they score it. Like, what would you say is like a tip for somebody who wants a job, like to stand out in the messy job?
So that's a totally fair question. And yeah, to circle back to your question of, the client who's getting inundated with resumes and then trying to figure out how to weed through them and pick the right person. So that's what our firm does. Like we take that early part of the funnel off of the plate of our client and we do that weeding through, we do that evaluating. So the way that candidates can stand out is number one, please don't bombard recruiters and hiring managers with messages on LinkedIn. It is crazy to me. And I myself, earlier in my recruitment career, I gave that advice because I didn't know any better. And now I know they are getting bombarded. Like a lot of people are doing that. They are sending individualized messages and they are sending messages to every single person they can think of. The best way, really, truly, is to tailor your resume to the position description because
Hmm.
most of the time it's been made very, very thoughtfully. Like they really have thought long and hard about who do we need, what do we need them to be able to do. So if you can communicate in writing your value that you would bring to this team, that's huge. And then secondly, I would do everything you possibly can to get a personal referral to the job. So
Mm.
not blasting messages, but like go through all your connections on LinkedIn, go through everyone you know and see if someone you know is connected to someone you know who's connected to someone you know at this company. Like your goal is to get that person to advocate for you because at most companies, personal referrals like that get put to the top of the list where you're at least going to get an interview. And then at that point, it's up to you. You need to interview well. You need to obviously, like we already talked about the soft
Yeah.
skills you need. But yeah, if you can get that referral, that's typically going to at least get your foot in the door. So that's my absolute best advice for you to stand out.
Yeah, do you think like the people are feeling discouraged like from the job market, or like what do you think, right? Because like you'll have clients or like a candidate and like they'll get rejected, right? But like that's just part of how getting a job is, right? Like it just you can't
Mhm.
get you can't get every job that you want, but
Right, right. Well, so we represent the client, right? So we represent the company. So yes, we're talking to candidates, but they're not
oh, I
our
see.
client, right? Like the client is the company. So yes, if a candidate doesn't work out for a job, we obviously communicate that to them. We let them know.
Mm,
We give them feedback. For some, it's like silly reasons that's really not their
sure,
fault.
sure, sure,
For
sure.
example, there's some companies where they're like, listen, you just have to live in this specific city, this specific distance from the office, right? Like the commute is just too long for you. Even if the candidate is like, I'm okay with the commute, the
Oh
company's,
God.
some of it's like that, right? Where we're like, okay, bummer, like nothing you could have done about that. What we communicate to the candidate is we try to be as encouraging. I have multiple clients that are hiring for similar roles. If I had a candidate who didn't work out for one, if I knew they could be a fit for that one, then I would kind of give them the option to be interviewed for both. So that's another benefit recruitment firm, right? Because we have that kind of inside scoop to all the different roles in a certain market or in a certain industry.
Yeah, yeah, I would say like sometimes like the reasons are strange or some. Well, they'll give you like there's I guess a standard rejection template, and then there's like I guess more tailored feed. Sometimes like the candidates they don't agree with the feedback. It's just I don't
For
know.
sure.
It's
And
a
sometimes it
personality
really
matching thing, you think? Or
totally. And sometimes it really was like you were great, but someone was just a little bit better. Like
oh
that's
yeah.
hard. Like maybe your resume and your background perfectly matches the position, but there was someone who perfectly matched it like 1% more. Most of the searches that I run, it is just a super competitive candidate market. And so that's the feedback that I genuinely have to give my candidates. Like there just was someone who beat you out by just a little bit.
Would you say that the different departments like the hiring processes are different, like not so much like personality or like soft skill, but like for engineering example or like a
Mhm.
product designer or whatever, like comparing that to like a recruiting or like a sales, like there's totally
Yeah.
different skills that are needed for that. Do you think like there's a difference in getting those jobs because they're just one's more interpersonal skills or maybe one's more like technical skills? Like how would you
Yeah.
compare and contrast
Yeah.
those things?
So interpersonal skills are never going to hurt you, right? Like so if you develop your interpersonal skills no matter what job you're applying for, those are only going to help you get more jobs. So that's number one. If you're applying for a super technical position like a product designer for example or a software engineer, there's a specific tech stack you have to have. Like a product design role I've recruited for before, you had to have Figma experience. Like I
Mm,
couldn't
gotcha.
in front of the hiring manager if you didn't. Or if there's a software engineering role, you'll probably have to do some kind of tech assessment, whether it's a take-home coding assignment or a live coding exercise on the interview, or you'll just be asked technical questions. So yes, there is definitely that hard skill technical component. So that does make the process different and the vetting different for different roles for sure.
Oh yeah, thanks for clearing that up. I just wondered. I think like, do you think like there's more demand for either or of those, like from people who want like I guess with what you've experienced in like your career? Like, do you think like one job is more coveted than the other, or like just more in demand from the
Hmm.
candidate's perspective?
That's a good question. I mean, in general, in the tech industry, so like you said, sales and software engineering, those are the roles
Yeah.
that I see most often, and that our clients come to us most often to fill out their tech companies. Sales, especially because unfortunately there is pretty high turnover within sales.
Oh, okay.
So that's a role that we definitely fill really often. But then another one of our clients, they're in crazy hyper growth mode right now, and we've literally hired 7 technical roles for them in the last 4 months.
Hmm.
So it just really depends on the company and the space that they're in and kind of what the market's looking like at the moment. But I would say those are probably the two most common in tech that we see.
Nice, nice. I guess Julia, just switching gears a little bit. I wanted to ask you like, what would you say is like, the biggest surprise that you've seen, I guess, when you've been operating Aligned Recruitment, like from things that you didn't know until you like experienced them, or like, like, you're kind of like the CEO and the recruiter. Like, would you say like, yeah, that there's some pleasant surprises or unpleasant surprises too?
Honestly, Dan, I'm thrilled to say it's been pleasant surprises. Our target audience is founders, right? I get it. Like what you're doing is intense. I'm here for it. I understand. But because I get that vision that they have and that mission that they're on and the fact that they need to hire the right people to make that vision come to life, it's been a very pleasant surprise that I get to connect with my prospective clients in that very personal way where I personally understand a lot of their pain points and how they're emotionally feeling as they approach their startup founder journey. And then also I get to fix it. Like I get to say, yeah, you're not an expert in recruitment. You shouldn't be. That's
Yeah,
not what
yeah.
you do, right? So like the same way I would hire a software engineering firm if I needed software development done, let us come in, do the recruitment for you. Don't feel like you need to become the master of it. So yeah, that's been really a pleasant surprise how much I enjoy talking to other startup founders.
Yeah, I think one cool question I want to hear from you, or like I guess like interesting to hear your like it's like what you've seen is like when like an entrepreneur is like raised like I guess like they're like under 5 people and then they scale to like 10 people or even like
Mhm.
20. How would you describe like that whole process for them? I mean that's a big life-changing thing to hire 15 people and like
Yes.
grow a company. It could fail too. Like the work nobody could just buy the product or things could something wrong could happen. Like I guess like what have you seen that process look like since that's a really
Mhm.
important process.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, any founder will tell you, you don't think about the fact that it could fail. You
Uh-huh.
just don't go there mentally, right? Like you keep your mindset in abundance and this, yes, like does your product need to have product market fit? Does it need to make sense? Does it need to be something that people want? Yes, obviously you need to do validation before you've even started your company. But once you've done those things, then you just press forward. You just hustle
Mm.
and you say, we're going to make this company successful and we're going to make this work. So then, yes, when you're at the point of needing to double or triple your team, it has a huge impact, which is why I keep saying this soft skills thing is so important for candidates because startup founders need you to not only have the right skill set for them to grow their team, but you need to be on board with their vision. Like
Mm.
if you're a startup founder, you're passionate. You don't start a company because you're like, I don't really care about this. You start it
Right.
because you deeply care, right? So
Yeah.
you want to bring people on board who are not only phenomenal product managers, but they're also aligned with your company's values and the way that you conduct business and the way that you speak internally. There's such specific cultural norms built around that in startup environments that are super small. And the founders need to protect that,
Hmm.
especially when the company is so tiny, to make sure that it stays that way as they scale. So yeah, those hires are so pivotal when you're going from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. And that's why that one client I mentioned where we've brought on so many dev hires in the past couple months, those have been really key hires because they're in that very tiny, new startup phase right now. So that is something that we love getting to do with our clients.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's just so like it's sometimes hard to fathom like that the companies can grow at that rate. Would you
Yeah,
say
well,
it's
it
like
depends on
sales?
if they're bootstrapped or VC funded, but I mean, either way, I have seen some crazy exponential growth like that, which is really cool. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah, well, I've never been to Atlanta. I just want to like hear from you like what's the not the economy, but I guess like what's the tech scene over there? Because I think somebody did from Atlanta did reach out to me about something, and then like I was like, oh, I'd never heard of Atlanta and like the tech.
Do they even know
Did
about tech over
it?
there in Atlanta? It's not the Silicon Valley. How dare they? That's so funny, Dan. Yeah, so same. I didn't have any idea what a big tech scene there was here in Atlanta until I moved here and kind of got in the tech recruitment world. But yeah, so actually every couple weeks I go to there's a co-working space here called the Atlanta Tech Village.
Oh,
And
nice.
they do a lunch for founders. They do pitch practice where we all get up and do our 30-second elevator pitch for each other. It's amazing. Like the tech scene here is actually gigantic. I had no idea. There's dozens of tech events that come to town every year where you get to go and listen to industry leaders on, how to position your product the best, how to create your go-to-market strategy, how to do validation. So it's amazing. Highly recommend. We'd love to have you if you ever want to come visit.
I've got to check out Atlanta.
The food is amazing. Yes, and
You know,
especially into barbecue. We're very into the whole southern barbecue scene now that we live here. So we're all in.
I've got to go. Yeah. What's it called? I met somebody from Georgia when I was like in line for a pizza in New York like last year, and he was just telling me about Georgia, and I'm like, yeah, that does sound cool. Like more space, like like you've lived in New York, right? How would you compare and contrast like those two different like
Oh my gosh, so
cities and
different. Yeah. Well, so I'm from upstate New York, but
oh,
I did live in New York City after college when I worked at SoulCycle. So, I mean, I hated it. Let me be the first to say I'm not a city person. I've learned about myself. I way prefer space.
right?
The house that I have with my husband and our kids, we live on an acre. We have land. We
There you
can
go.
breathe. Like that's what I personally prefer. So if you're someone who likes the city, I mean, New York's amazing. Atlanta's amazing. It's a very cool city. We're just about 30 minutes outside the city, so we're up there all the time. But yeah, I mean, both are fantastic. My sister lived in Brooklyn for years, loved it. She recently moved out to the burbs, and she's so sad. She misses Brooklyn every day.
Mm.
So it's more about like knowing you and what kind of environment you prefer.
No, that is so true. I think about that sometimes too, just like thinking about like where I could live next, like not having like strings attached to a location. Like it's just like I've
Mhm.
lived in the Bay Area for like or California really my whole life, but there's
Mhm.
so much out there. What's that word? Like not explore the options, you know?
Yeah, no, there is so much out there, and especially with the clients that we recruit for that are fully remote, we have a lot of candidates that end up going
Oh wow.
the digital nomad route, right? Like my sister, for example, she lives in Thailand right now and
Mm.
works remotely for a couple of different companies here, and she can have full flexibility to travel. So I love recruiting for companies that have that kind of flexibility because then their candidates get to really kind of build the life they want, which is awesome.
No, that's awesome. A couple last things here, Julia. I wanted to hear from you. Were like, do you think like that it was harder for you to, I guess, be a business owner versus work as a recruiter, or have those other jobs like that you mentioned prior in your career? Or what do you think?
Yeah.
Because you
Oh
have
my
so much passion, right? Like it makes up for that.
Yes, yes, Dion. For me, it is so much harder to work for a company
Oh
where
wow.
I'm not excited about what I'm doing and I'm not excited about who I'm working with. It is way easier to work for myself because even though it's hard, right, like the work is hard, the days can be long, but I ultimately get to make the decisions. I ultimately get to work with my co-founder to move us in the direction that we both feel passionate about moving in. And I don't have to answer to someone whose vision I don't necessarily agree with. So for anyone who's thinking about going out on their own, obviously, like I said, please, please, please validate your product, do your market research, don't just jump in. But if you know what you're doing and you know you have a solid product, entrepreneurship is an incredible opportunity. And I feel grateful for it every single day.
Yeah, I could tell you guys are bringing a good I guess like recruiting option that most people are not accustomed to. So I think it's really cool.
That's our goal. Yeah. I hate how many, and not to throw recruiters, just throwing resumes at a wall, seeing what sticks. We are fully tailored to your individual company and what you need. We have this very, very bespoke consulting solution. We'll not only do full cycle recruitment for you, we'll also help you figure out your employer branding or your Glassdoor strategy or how to position your benefits so that your potential hires are more excited about. I love getting to do all of that for the companies that we work with.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Julie, where would you say that you get the I guess like the passion for recruiting or scaling a team or like just what you do? Because I think like a lot of people they see the job as like a paycheck. What do you think it was about this industry or like, this career that you find so interesting or like just never, run out of the enthusiasm with?
No, that's a good question. So what I love about recruiting is that you literally get to change people's lives. Going from a crappy job to an amazing job transforms your life.
Right.
Going from being underpaid to being paid at market or ideally above changes your life. And then as a company, hiring the right talent means that you can actually scale and grow effectively. So that changes your company and it makes it so you can actually hit your goals. So the best recruitment is a win for the company, a win for the candidate, and a win for the recruiter because they get to know that they played a part in literally changing the situations of everyone they're involved with.
Your manager has a bigger impact on your mental health or physical your health than your doctor.
People don't leave jobs, they leave bosses.
Sure.
So yes, your boss has such a huge impact. So a good boss, both a good and a bad boss change your life, but a good boss in a good way. So that's why I love that the clients we work with, we know they're good bosses and we know that we're bringing candidates into this really incredible opportunity.
Kudos. Keep up the great work. Last couple questions, Julie. Do you have a favorite book or like a favorite novel or things like that? I guess.
Oh my gosh, I love that question. Yeah, I'm about to totally nerd out on you and
Okay.
tell you I'm a die-hard Harry Potter
Harry
fan.
Potter.
I will never not love those books, all seven. I cannot even pick a favorite. But yeah, those are my favorite fiction books of all time.
Gotcha. Well, next one is let's see, what is it? What kind of music do you listen to?
That's actually a hilarious question because my husband just got a new car and it
Oh.
keeps trying to do like the whole AI DJ thing where it's like, hey, I see you listen to a lot of music like this. Do you want this DJ playlist? And he's like, no, because we share Spotify. And so my Spotify is all meditation music, which I but it's because that's what I listen to when I'm just doing like focus work during the day. It's not like I listen to that to like, I don't know, party, but
Right,
that's
right.
honestly the music I listen to most often is like Tibetan bowls. It's
Uh,
comical, but yeah, that's my super absurd answer to your question.
gotcha. I think that does it for those two questions. If you had to give advice to a younger Julia, like a 20-year-old self Julia, what do you want to tell her?
I love that question. Honestly, I would just say it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. I know that you don't like that you can't see where it's going, but I promise when you get there, it'll be okay.
For sure. Do you think that entrepreneurship is born or like made, or like what would you say you are?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say both because honestly, people ask me all the time, oh, did you always want to start a business? And the answer is no. This literally did not occur to me until probably a year-ish ago was when I first started thinking about this. So I think entrepreneurs are both born and made. And I think it's really a matter of taking opportunities as they come and living a life where opportunities do come and where you're in a position to accept them and say yes to them when they do come your way. So that was the case for me. And I know that can be the case for a ton of your listeners if that's the direction that they want to go in.
Yeah, for sure. And the last question, Julia, is or the second to last is how would you how what would you say your startup mindset is when it comes to being the founder of a online recruitment?
I love that question. So, like I mentioned earlier, I believe every startup founder needs to just have total confidence in their product, in their strategy, and in their own ability to
Mhm.
either do what needs to be done to grow the business and be successful or seek out the support that they need. Like for us, we hired an executive coach, and that has been so transformative for us as we've grown the business. So, I feel very empowered to
Mm.
get the help I need if I don't have it internally, or lean into the skill sets that I have to get to where I want to go as a business owner.
Yeah, t tell me a little bit about that. I've interviewed like a couple of executive coaches. Like, did that really like unlock like doubts that you had, or like what do you think the biggest
Yes.
thing
Oh
was?
my gosh, man. So I have worked as a recruiter for years and years and years. I've never done sales ever.
Oh,
Not
no.
a day, not a day of my life. I would send some of the firm I worked at before I started Aligned. I would send like a couple sales messages here and there, but I didn't know what I was doing. They were clunky. They were awkward. It was not baked out. So when we started this company and we decided that I would be the one to create our go-to-market strategy, I was transparent with my co-founder. I was like, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. So we found her name is Diane Prince.
Mm.
Highly recommend her to anyone in your audience. We found her, we did a discovery call with her, and it was love at first sight for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, you have successfully scaled and exited 5 recruitment companies. You know how to do this. I need your help. So we've worked with her over the past 3 months, and we have her on retainer moving forward because she's that wonderful. And yes, she's given me the skills I need, the tools I need, but also the confidence that I know what I'm doing. So it was so worth it.
Yeah, that's a big one. I noticed too. I guess like I interview a lot of people who make companies, and like I just wonder like what makes them like go fully in, or like not have the doubt, because there's a lot of, if you look at the data, like there's more rejections or more failures than
More
successes,
failures than
right?
successes.
Yeah, and I guess like the coach thing, like I've noticed too, like I've talked to them and they'll say what they do, but like just hearing from you like what they do is and how they've helped, that's really cool to hear. The last thing is like how do people who want to use aligned recruitment, or if they're either a candidate or if they're like the hiring team or manager, like how do they get in touch with you, or like do they, how does that work?
Yeah, love that question. So if you are a founder, CEO of the company, and you're looking to work with us to hire for your team, go ahead and add me on LinkedIn, Julia Arpag, Arpag. I am literally the only Julia Arpag on LinkedIn. So you will definitely be able to find me. Go ahead and connect with me, shoot me a message, and we can jump on a call to chat about what kind of hiring your team needs. And you can also check out our website, alignedrecruitment.com. And if you're a candidate, you can go on alignedrecruitment.com and fill out the general application with your resume and your information. And if it matches any of the roles that we're recruiting for with our clients, we'll get in touch with you.
Wow. Well, Julia, it's been a lot of fun. I learned a lot too. I'm glad you guys are doing what you guys are doing. So thank you for the time
Thank
today.
you, Dan. Thank you so much.